Pop. That's the sound of a cultural explosion. That single flash of a camera bulb in a 1950s studio didn't just capture a woman, it captured a revolution. If the 1950s had a visual DNA, she was the double helix. Often called the Queen of Pinups, Betty wasn't just a model. She was the aesthetic blueprint for an entire era of rebellion. Before there were music videos, before there was Instagram, there was the pinup. She was the face that graced the lockers of soldiers, the dashboards of lead sled Cadillacs, and eventually the covers of the most influential rock albums in history. Today, we're looking at the woman who defined the 1950s visual vibe. We're exploring how a girl from Tennessee became the ultimate symbol of forbidden fun, and how her image became the heartbeat of the jukebox. This is the story of pinup power. Let's talk about the mechanics of the look. Every subculture has its uniform, and for the pinup, it was a masterclass in geometry and marketing. First and foremost, the bangs. The Betty bangs weren't just a haircut, they were a statement. Short, thick, and perfectly arched, they framed the face with a mix of innocent girl next door and mysterious femme fatale. It was a look that screamed confidence. Then, there were the high-waisted shorts and the leopard print. In an era where fashion was often stiff and restrictive, think heavy poodle skirts and girdles, the pin-up aesthetic offered something radically different. It was athletic, it was bold, and it was surprisingly DIY. This look was marketed directly to the average American teenager who was tired of looking like their mother. But it wasn't just about being provocative. It was about style mechanics. The pin-up look was designed to be photogenic. It was about high contrast, dark hair, bright red lips, and sharp silhouettes. This wasn't just vanity, it was branding. Companies began to realize that if you put a pin-up style illustration on a product, whether it was spark plugs, motor oil, or a soda bottle, it sold. Betty Page became the silent spokesperson for the American dream's wild side. She represented a freedom that many women were only just starting to claim for themselves. She was a rocker in spirit, even if she wasn't the one twisting the throttle. Now, how does a girl in front of a camera lens connect to a guy with a Gretsch guitar? Through the jukebox. In the mid-50s, rock and roll was still considered dangerous music. It was the forbidden sound. And what better way to package forbidden sound than with forbidden imagery? If you walked into any roadside diner or transport cafe in 1956, you'd see a glowing Wurlitzer or a Seeburg jukebox. Those machines were the altars of the youth. And right there, on the glass panels and the song selection cards, you'd often see the influence of pin-up art. The visual shorthand for "this music is loud and exciting" was a drawing of a girl who looked exactly like Betty Page. When early vinyl records moved from boring brown paper sleeves to full-color jackets, the pin-up was the go-to choice. It created a visual expectation for the music inside. If you saw a pin-up on the cover, you knew you weren't about to hear a church hymn. You were about to hear a slap-back bass and a singer who sounded like he was losing his mind. This connection created a vibe that became inseparable from the rockabilly scene. The music sounded the way a pin-up looked, curvy, rhythmic, and just a little bit out of bounds. Betty Page's photos provided the visual rhythm for the records being spun. She was the silent backup singer for every rock and roll star of the decade, providing the image that fueled the imagination of every kid dropping a nickel into that machine. By the late 1960s, the pin-up aesthetic had faded into the background, replaced by psychedelia and bell-bottoms. But you can't keep a good icon down. They were looking at the greasy, leather-clad, pin-up-filled underworld. And who was their patron saint? Betty Page. Suddenly, Betty's look was everywhere again. In the late 1970s and early 80s, something incredible happened. The rockabilly revival. Bands like the Stray Cats and the Cramps started looking back at the 1950s, but they weren't looking at the Leave It to Beaver version. Punk rockers and new wavers rediscovered her old photos, finding a kindred spirit in her rebellious gait. The 80s revival brought the Betty Bangs back to the mainstream. This era cemented her status not just as a 50s model, but as a timeless icon of subculture. It proved that the pin-up vibe wasn't just a fad, it was a permanent part of the rock and roll soul. Today, you see her influence in every rockabilly weekend from Las Vegas to London. You see it in the tattoos on the arms of modern-day rockers, and in the way vintage Buicks and Cadillacs are restored. Betty Page didn't just pose for pictures, she helped build a lifestyle that refuses to die. Betty Page disappeared from the public eye for decades, but her power never dimmed. She remains the gold standard for fashion, music branding, and the art of the visual hook. She showed the world that you could be playful, powerful, and rebellious all at once, without ever saying a word. Her impact on how we see the 1950s and how we see rock and roll cannot be overstated. She was the spark that lit the jukebox. We want to know, who is your favourite icon of 50s style? Is it the classic pin-up, or do you prefer the rugged look of the Greasers? Tell us in the comments. And if you're enjoying this trip back in time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Revival channel. Next time on Revival, we're heading to 706 Union Avenue in Memphis, Tennessee. We're going inside a tiny studio that changed the world. We'll meet the man who invented the electric riff and the spark that finally met the fuel. We're going to Sun Records. Until then, stay classy, stay wild, and keep the record spinning. This is Revival.